And do you know what? Would people like to move up a little bit while I'm talking to make sure we need to have people sitting beside each other? Huh?
We're good.
You're good? Okay. Well, okay, very good. Well then, first of all, welcome. And how many people are new here? Wow, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Very good. Well, I just want to make sure that you know a little bit about 40 Plus before we start. 40 Plus is an all-volunteer nonprofit organization. And by all volunteer, I mean everyone that you see here that's active in bringing you this service, and as well in the day-to-day operations. We're all volunteers. And we've existed here since 1953. So if you can imagine what it takes to keep an all-volunteer organization going continuously, we're going to celebrate our 65th year here in Washington, D.C. So we're very happy to be able to tell you that we're here to serve you. We're a peer-to-peer organization where we try to peers help other peers that are just now going through the training process. We have a training course that you're going to learn more about in a little while. And meanwhile, I just want to make sure you know that we have a heritage that is full of really goodwill for people who are trying to get back into the Salesforce, I'm sorry, I'm not at my best today, workforce, and that we are trying to make sure that we are of service to you because you have valuable experience that you can share with your prospective employers. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Ken Chapman, who is our Director of Partnerships and Programming.
Thank you, Gerald. So just a quick note before we get started. And was anyone else at the Boom conference last Thursday? Alex, right? I saw you. Terrific. I just wanted to pass along, because as Gerald mentioned, I do take the lead in partnerships. And for those of you, and I've spoken to a couple of you who work with nonprofits and associations, we all know you can't do it alone. You have to collaborate with other organizations, and 40 Plus is very proud to collaborate with a number of different organizations, many of which have been led by our speakers and our former experts, including a star in the 40 Plus universe, Shira Harrington. Shira is just launching a new initiative called Boomer Works. I think we've mentioned that a couple of times here at 40 Plus. And she has a very special program coming up on July 15th. It's the Boomer Boot Camp. It's a complimentary program that will be held all morning over at McLean Bible in Leesburg, Indiana, where she and other experts like Angela Heath will be talking about opportunities for those of us with experience in the workforce that are looking to navigate the gig economy. You know, what's that like in a 1099 world that we live in today? So we have 1 or 2 flyers out on the table about this event, so take a look at the website, boomerworks.org. We know our friend Shira will do a great job with that initiative.
What's the date?
July 15th.
Okay.
So I had this 4-page intro of our speaker today that I was going to read, and then he told me, if you read this, I'm leaving. So I'm going to save you all. My friend and colleague Lowell Aplebaum is here. Lowell is the CEO and founder of Next Connection, and they help associations associate. And he's going to tell you a little bit more about his background. So please welcome Lowell.
So I speak often enough that I find bios being read are often the worst way to start a session, because then you're just passively listening to something about another person. So I'll tell you what I think is a little more interesting. This way we get to know each other a little better. So I am ensconced in the nonprofit association world for over a decade. At this point, I'm a diehard volunteer, so I think that's how I'll set the stage. I'm the chair-elect for the Commission for the Certification for our industry for the coming year. So I like to play in that learning area. I have a master's in education and learning, so that's how I get to scratch that itch, that part of my mind. As well as there's a diversity executive leadership program run by our main association. And I'm a mentor for a CEO down in Florida for that as well. And then, because I like to volunteer in a million different places, I also have traditionally run a executive level learning series for those senior in their careers. And then on the personal side, I'm a Red Cross platelet donor and solicitor. I saw my dad give blood my whole life growing up. I walk in and they really like my veins. They say that I'm a really easy stick. They usually give me the new person that doesn't know how to do it yet, which doesn't work out well for me, but works out well for them. But it's very important to do. Through my work with various organizations, I've been to all 50 US states, not yet every capital. Springfield, Illinois is nowhere on the beaten path. Chicago is nowhere by there. I do love to cook. Do not ask me to clean, but I can cook pretty well. And then how many people, anyone know what a sommelier is? So that is like the certification for wine tasting. I do not have that, but the equivalency for beer, Cicerone, I'm a first level certified Cicerone. I, for whatever reason, have the palate of being able to taste different hops, and I love to cook. I love to pair beer with it. There are some in the audience that have witnessed and been the beneficiaries of my beer tasting. I actually have people from across the country call me on FaceTime and say, here's what I am, what should I be getting for my meal tonight? So that's a friends and family service I work. Speaking of which, and the light is horrible for this, but this is the probably most important part. The middle guy is 6, his name is Lewis, and the twins are 4, Juniper and Mabel. They all have glasses, they're all really cute, and you can actually see them. So that's a little about me. What are we here to talk about today? It's not me, it's about you. So we take advantage every day of our 5 senses, but we rarely think about them because we're using them all the time. When I was thinking about this session in particular, it made me think of actually my grandmother, my Mama Jean. She was 4'10", but had one of those presences like filled a room, right? You did not cross her, and like you knew when she was there. She told all her grandchildren they were her favorite, and they never knew that until after she passed. But she had in her mind that to be a good boy, you needed to like pickles. I don't know why, old school mentality, but you had to like pickles. I did not like pickles. And being stubborn, I would stop trying them, and finally at the end of teenagehood of stubbornness, I started to try them again, determined to make her happy, and through trying them, started to like them, and then started to love them. And there's actually the neuroscience behind it, that you can change your neural pathways to change your sense of taste and get new things that you like to taste. We're not talking about taste today, I did not bring a buffet, but we are talking about sensory enhancement. We have the ability to not just take advantage of the senses we have, but to improve the senses that we have. And whether you're in a job search mode, whether you're in a job improvement mode, whether you're in a job excellence mode, human interaction, collegial interaction, customer interaction is a necessary component to being successful in whatever you're trying to do. And so if your listening is just good enough versus your listening being awesome, why would you not want it to be awesome? So this is what we're going to do today. So we're going to talk a little bit about how listening actually works, and then we'll talk about how we could actually do it better. And then we'll actually say how can we do it better with someone else. So both the individual skill and then also the paired skill. Those that were here early got the forewarning, but I will be facilitating a number of pieces where you will be speaking to someone else. So whoever you are sitting next to, if you're in a row with a pair, congratulations, that's your buddy for the day. If you're in a row with a 3, you're now a triumvirate. So you'll be working with other people and not just listening to me. Which for those that are listening at home on YouTube, my apologies, but you can still do the exercises with whoever you're with. So let's start with that. So with your pair, your best buddy, your brain buddy, your peanut butter and jelly, this is what I would like. First, determine who's the peanut butter and who's the jelly in your pair. And if you're a 3, you can be peanut butter, jelly, and marshmallows. You can be peanut butter, jelly, and bread. But determine, rather than person A and person B, determine, so I can give you instructions. Who's the peanut butter, who's the jelly? I see that conversation will not be a problem with this group. That was the easy part. So here's what I would like. Here's what I would like to start, and I promise we'll go back and forth so people will get different chances to do things. For peanut butters first. For the peanut butter, I would like you to tell a story from your life. A story of either struggle, a story of triumph. You get about 2 to 4 minutes to tell your story, whichever moment you want to talk about. And for those of you who are not peanut butter, whether you're jelly or something extra, You're just listening to their story. All right? So 2 to 4 minutes. Think of a moment of struggle or a moment of triumph. It's your choice. And tell your story to your partner. Go.
Sounds like you're trying. Something more expecting. A lot of people don't realize exactly. So I heard but not too far off. Oh, it's still going.
Take one more minute. You don't have one more minute.
You with what? So you work at the one right over there. Yeah, I live like fucking 3 blocks. I'm right top. Yeah. So I know, I pass by there all the time, going to the metro. But yeah, that's a big kind of thing. A little bit of a complex. Yeah, complex. People eating out there, nice day out. That's what
All right, can I have your attention back, please? I apologize for interrupting. Can I have your attention back, please? We will come back to your stories a little bit later. In a moment, let's first just talk about listening. So there's been a ton of research done about listening, and what we find is that when we're in conversation, the average of research shows that we're actually using our listening faculties about 60% of the time, which is not bad. But out of that 60% of the time, we only retain on average about 25% of what we hear. That means at the end of the day, I get home, and my wife says to me, the kids had school today, the dishes are in the sink, I know you want to have a beer, but we have to clean up the table first. I hear, I get to have a beer. Yeah. Now, it may not always work that way, but think about when you go to any learning session. Think about when you go to any lecture. Think about when you go to any interview. Of what you are going to tell, the stories you're going to tell, of the sentences you're going to say, the most you can hope for on average is a 25% retention. Now that means that you need to think but really carefully from a speaker standpoint about what's the 25% I'm going to make sure that they hear, that they're hearing the right stuff. And from a listening level, knowing that our short-term recognition does not give us 100% success level in terms of retaining what we hear, how do you look to focus on what you're hearing to make sure you're hearing the details that are going to affect your life, that are going to affect your decisions? How do you make them as imprints? Because when we talk about listening itself, what we're really talking about is hearing through the noise, right? Hearing, there's constant sound around us. When we're listening, we're actually making meaning from all of that sound. And there's ways that our brain helps us do this. So there's a number of patterns we have that through all the cacophony of sound around us, that our brain tries to determine in a quick, momentary fashion, what does this mean and what does this mean to me? So for instance, one of the ways is by affecting us physiologically. So, sounds like that could be the forest, could be the ocean on the beach. These have been proven to actually change our physiological reactions. It can slow your heartbeat down. It can help your breathing. It actually helps emit hormones that calm you. It will actually affect your brain waves. There's a reason that we go to the beach so often on vacation. It's not just because we like to get a tan. Sitting on the beach, listening to the rhythm of the waves, come time and again. For many of us, we could start to almost feel ourselves get in sync with those waves as they come in a regular pattern. We could feel ourselves calm down. Our bodies are in line and can align with these types of reactions. Now let's say you are going to an interview. Let's say you are going to an important moment in the situation. Or let's say you're going to your next physical. What could you do on the way in terms of what sounds you listen to that could change your physiological self, not radically, but enough to give you a little bit of an edge, to put you in a calmer mood, help emit some of those hormones that will let you focus and concentrate. Sounds change who we are physiologically. Now let's say you're pulling onto the highway and you're not stuck in traffic, so you're not on the beltway, but picture you're somewhere else. And you're pulling on and everything's right, and then you hear behind you this. So,
what did I do wrong?
Right? So the first reaction is, oh no, what'd I do?
Right.
Right, you feel the tense, right? The second reaction, if you're a good person, is hopefully when you realize you did nothing wrong, is I hope whoever this is going to is okay. But a sound in itself, and that, by the way, is before you see a light, right? If you just hear that, you may start looking for the light. You don't know where it is, but if you hear that sound when you're in the car, we have a psychological trigger that automatically makes us think either danger, as in I'm in danger, or someone else is, or I've done something wrong, or I need to change the action I have. Our brain has been trained to react to that. Now that, as opposed to this. Now, perhaps not that loud, but research has shown that the sounds of bird calls itself is also a calming and also a safe-giving thought process. That when we hear that, we feel safe. But let me say one thing and then I'll take the question. If you are hearing this, you come along, and all of a sudden you hear, for many people, there's a momentary sort of spike of what went wrong. Kind of like canary in the cave. When we hear nature, things are okay. When all of a sudden there's stark silence, and we don't hear the nature around us and the usual sounds, something's gone wrong. Psychologically, that fight or flight, we're being told something's happened and we have to react.
So I have band, an EEG band for meditation, and it's biofeedback. And when you reach the meditative state with the alpha waves, you have headphones on, and it does a bird. Okay, so it actually reinforces the where you are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we'll get to this a little bit, but modern trends are towards urbanization. Instead of like the ideal being going out and finding your house in the country after living in the city, it's more and more is how can you get back as close to the city as possible. And also it's challenging to think about when we lose this sort of natural inclination of how nature can affect our thought process.
And when you move away, it's a storm.
So let's talk about a different one. So there's the cognitive response as well. So for instance, let's say you are at a reception, and I'm trying to talk to you, and there's very important things for you to talk about. I'm just talking more like this like this. Can you really hear what I'm saying? Can you focus on what I'm saying really well? That's where a microphone can work out, it probably not work. You've been in a reception that you're straining to hear? We need certain circumstances around us to be able to hear these items. Research has showed that when two people are talking at the same time, the most you can hear is about 1.6 people per human conversation. So if I'm sitting at my desk working, and two people are like sitting water cooler talking, how much am I really concentrating on my work versus hearing what they're saying? Where does that 0.6 of a person go? And so I think that's part of the natural struggle we have in any sort of loud circumstance when we go to one of these networking events, is how do we make meaningful connection in that moment when we're struggling to hear and connect with one another. And so how do we then parlay that knowledge to make sure the main effect of what we're trying to express gets across, but sets up a later future conversation with the right people in a more concentrated manner where there isn't all that ambient noise around you. And then there's the behavioral one, and I'll apologize for this, but you're driving along, and all of a sudden you could come on the radio disc, and for no good reason, all of a sudden your foot goes down on the accelerator a little bit more. Now pick the song that does it for you, but you have the song that comes on that makes you want to roll down the windows, turn the volume up, go faster above the speed limit when you shouldn't. Again, logic doesn't come into play there, but what does come into play is our behavioral reaction. Now think about that. You have reactions to different sounds, right? So if you have, so for instance, around 2 or 3 p.m. in the day, for me, is a hard time for me. Like I have a low waning of energy. I'm real creative in the morning, I get a second wind and I can work at 8 to 11 tonight, but 2 to 3 p.m., I'm pretty low energy. I have a song or two that I have sort of on hold that I could put on and listen to for 2 minutes or 5 minutes. It doesn't change everything, but do I have an inherent physiological, cognitive, behavioral reaction that helps wake me up a little bit? Yeah. And that is a tool in my tool belt that I can use to help me refocus. We talked about sounds like the police siren that make you get anxious all of a sudden. What about if you know you're about to go into a stressful situation? You get out of a really hard conversation and you need to refocus right away. Can you trick your mind into helping you do so? How do you reset? So for me, for instance, I have on my phone a recording of my children's laughter. I randomly got one time. I get out of a stressful situation, I listen to it for 10 to 12 seconds. It does not fix anything, but is it suddenly just a little bit easier to breathe? Does the weight of the world feel a little bit less? The little bits add up, and you have control over those. What are the sounds that make you feel at ease? What are the sounds that make you feel better? What are the sounds that help you concentrate? What are the sounds that give you energy? We have these amazing devices that lets us carry sounds with us that we want at any time, anywhere, all the time. So how are you taking advantage of that to give yourself a better chance of success when it comes to reacting to any situation or preparing for any situation? So we also do have some other tools at hand when we think about how our bodies work. So And all of this, Julian Treasure is a great researcher that does a lot of this sound research. But if we were back in this situation again, right? So we hear all this. I was like, okay, Jamie, Kim. Our bodies are trained to recognize, even throughout noise, pattern recognition, and none more strongly than our own name. It's why if you're in a crowd and your kid shouts out, "Mom, Dad," it doesn't matter if there's noise, your ear perks up. Now, if the kid sounds alike, it may not be your kid you're responding to, but if you're used to being called that, you're still going to react. That's why if you hear your child's laughter, your child's crying, even without your name, your brain, your listening has trained itself to recognize that pattern so that it doesn't even need your name. You're telling me in the din of the department store from 3 aisles away that you would hear your child's cry and not know it was your child's cry? There would be that response, I need to go see what that is. Now, it's not always your child, right? Sometimes it's not yours, in which case you can determine if you want to help or walk away, but you recognize that. So we have that as a skill set. We have that as a tool within our arsenal of getting through the noise. We also have what's called differencing. So for instance, this is called pitch. If I had put this on a little lower at the start of the session, by now, you wouldn't even hear it. White noise is similar, it's a little harsher. But pink noise, like that, is used as an ambient background to drown out other small sounds. So for instance, both of my kids still sleep with a white noise machine. It sounds like that. It goes on at night, and they sleep better with it. They have since birth. So the creaks in the house, the dog barking outside, has a harder time getting through that, but they don't hear that. And our minds are trained that there's certain decibel ranges where we won't hear that. I'm working with a for-profit education company, large office plan, speakers in the ceilings, that has a really low volume, ambient noise, pink noise, throughout the day going on. Workers don't even hear it anymore, but for like a voluminous, a huge, thank you, voluminous space can really damper down those other side conversations and help. So our brain helps in that way as well. And then, of course, there's location and people. So play along, close your eyes for a second. Even though your eyes are closed, just from the sound of my voice, or if we were quiet, your brain actually has some idea of how big this room is. Your brain has some idea as well, just from the other noises, that there are other people in this room. Open your eyes. Now, we're not bats, we don't have sonar, but our listening skills, our listening set is such that we can detect, at least at a rudimentary level, the space we're in. Are we alone? Are others there? Think about it as going spelunking, right? Going caving. If you were to walk into a cave and couldn't see anything, could you still, not with true accuracy, but with a rough level, through just sound, determine where the walls were to some extent? Are you in small space, big space? Are there others there? Think about how amazing that is, that without sight, you can do that. And then, and this could be a whole lecture in itself, we have a whole series of filters that we use with our listening as well. And here's a list of them. But let's say language. You get on the metro. How many people here speak a second language or know a second language? So you get on the metro and you hear two people get on right after you that are speaking that other language. Now they're not talking to you. They're probably not talking about you, maybe, but they're probably not talking about you. But does your ear still perk up? Do you all of a sudden go for the recognition? Oh, what are they saying? I can understand what they're saying. Is that your conversation? No. That's your brain using its language filter to say, I have comprehension there, do I need to pay attention? When you don't, you turn away. And that's an automatic filter you use without thinking about it. As you think about the filters, especially as we go down to different beliefs and attitudes, our filters of expectations or intentions. You want to know how two people can hear the same exact thing, but to come away with two very different meanings of what they heard? We come in with different filters that are not necessarily our choice, but are part of who we are. Our choice is how we then acknowledge them or react to them, of course. Our world today does not always help us with this. So let's talk first just about technology. So we have these nifty little devices, right? That often, if you go especially to educational institutions today, what you'll see are people that are in lecture halls that may be listening to a speaker that like record the session on their device, saying, oh, I'll go back and listen to that later. Or for instance, has anyone here ever signed up for a webinar or a web learning? Excellent. Have you said, oh, I'll get the recording and go back and listen to it after? And have you never gone back and listened to it after? I'm not saying you do all of them. I'm saying many people will sign up with intention but don't follow through because instead of the capability of technology being an aid to us, there are many moments where the technology itself has become a crutch to us. Meaning, oh, I'll record that webinar, I'll go back to it, I don't need to give intention to listening to it. And just thinking that we committed to getting the recording thinks it's going to help us in some way.
And as someone who manages and produces webinars, I find that so frustrating.
Yeah.
People participate.
One also it skews your how many people actually attended, got something from it.
Right.
From a learning theory, it's a whole separate. But technology, which is supposed to be an aid, often can be a replacement for our own capabilities, our own actions. Also, the world is just noisier today. I mean, I was going to play a recording of like Times Square, right? Where do we find space from the noise? Where do we find those moments of quiet and of solitude? They just don't exist as much anymore. And frankly, we need them. We need that to clear out a little bit. We need white space. Learning theory shows this. It's harder to find that. How do some of us find it? We find it with headphones, whether it's the little earplug ones or the big ones. However, headphones are more like putting yourself in a bubble. Right? When you see someone with headphones on, how likely are you to interrupt them? How likely are you to go over to them? So we may have found the quiet, but we've lost the interaction. We've lost what listening is supposed to be often, which is not a singular function. Is that good? Is that not good? When you see kids, especially growing up, that are on their devices with their headphones on all the time, I think one of the conversations I had most recently was we were talking about summer vacations and road tripping. And so a few decades ago, it was find all the license plates with the states, right? Like find the thing out the window. And now it's everyone with their headphones on watching the movie or on their device. And just from that simple family experience, what does that change mean? And our attention has changed as well. We now work in a world of sound bites, 140 characters for Twitter. By the way, the hashtag for here is 40+DC. If you put something out that help the organization get recognition. But we're fighting for attention. From what we're saying, it is what's the bullet point. So if you're going to compose a letter, more is not always better, right? If you think you're going to compose a letter or a newsletter or any sort of email transmission, think about the number of emails you get a day. Let's say you get 100 a day. I'm going to add a few zeros for what you probably get. Let's say you get 100 a day. How many of those do you read? In your own mind, what's your percentage? How many of those do you read to the end? Could you tell me what the signature is at the end? How many organizations try to cram as much in, thinking because they got it in the email, they've told whoever the recipient is what they need to know? What are the ones you're most likely to read, or most likely to use? The ones that have a few quick bullet points with links to follow for what's attuned for where you are. The ones that don't only use copy, but incorporate image or video or sound or something that's going to grab your attention, infographics or pictures. We need something that's going to grab our attention nowadays. And that's a big shift from how we traditionally marketed, how we traditionally communicated, and also for everything from employers to colleagues, what their listening patterns may be. So in all of this, the question is, where do you find the quiet? Where is the subtle? Where is the understated? To wrap up this section, what I would say is that the thing to remember is that listening creates understanding. In everything we do, we need to be understood and we need to understand. And if we are not listening well, then we can't understand well. And if you think about some of the intense conflicts you may have seen in your life, whether that's in a public or personal arena, the disconnect of understanding often comes from not listening. So, let's talk about 3 different things you could do, small things that you could do starting today, just be a little bit better individual listeners. And then we'll move to the interactive listening. So number 1 is silence. So my goal for you for the next month is to find 3 minutes each day, only 3 minutes, where you are going to be in silence. Nothing's going to ring, nothing's going to buzz. Now, even now, if we're quiet, there's still ambient noise from outside you can hear. There's still probably stuff in the hallways you can hear. If you can get rid of those, great. Even this would be good. Do not do anything, but sit in silence for 3 minutes a day. Think of it this way. What you're taking in through your listening, through your hearing, think of your brain as like a big whiteboard. Everything coming in is going on that whiteboard, right? And your brain is constantly filtering out. Okay, what has to go to the side? What has to stay central? How do I organize it? Everything you have coming in. By the way, even when you're sleeping, right? You hear a noise when you're sleeping, your brain's still working while you're listening, right? It will wake you up. So think about it. That's not something that resets necessarily when you're sleeping. So, how do you help your brain clear the whiteboard? 3 minutes of silence, get some of that stuff off. If I could use a metaphor to another sense, has anyone ever been to a buffet before? Yeah? Let's pretend it's a good buffet, like one of the Las Vegas ones and not one of the $5.99 ones. The first taste or two you get, really good, mouth-watering. 10th or 11th is interesting. By the time you get to dish number 50 or 60, does everything just taste like chicken at that point? Sensory overload. You need sorbet. You need a palate cleanser. Well, if that makes sense for you for your taste, why is that not any less true for your hearing? So 3 minutes of silence a day can give you just the chance to clear out and reset a little bit. Number 2 is channel identification. And so if you are in a crowd, or you are in a noisy place, if you made the effort to try to pick out channels of sound, could you focus on one voice? Could you focus on one noise at a time? You can do this in nature too. You can do this outside. Can you hear the wind? Can you hear a tree rustle? Can you hear water moving? Wherever you are, you can train your ears to be better at that noise identification. It's like any muscle you have to flex and use and practice with to identify those channels. And the better that you get at identifying and focusing on those channels, that's a stronger skill you'll have to be able to do that going forward. So if you build channel identification as a skill set, the next time you're in the crowded space, you're in the networking event, you will be better at focusing on the singular voice that they're talking to because you've built that muscle.
So if you're good at doing that in nature, but not so much in a crowd, so does it transfer?
I think the basic skill set transfers. I think the environment you do it in needs to need more practice in the crowd. Also, each of these are basic approaches, but some of us are going to be better at some things than others. Some people do triathlons that are amazing. If I tried really hard, could I do one? Yes. Could I do it in the same amount of time as the person? No, they may have a more inherent physical skill set and aptitude than I do. I think there's a base there that you could certainly develop.
Yeah, I was going to say, I focus better in noise, which I think is weird. And I think you're right that there are times that if I'm writing something or needing to put something together, that at some point I can almost capture like that singular conversation. But I can sit for hours in a Starbucks or a noisy setting and read a book, no problem.
And
I mean, the conversation part is different, but just that my focus is better with noise than quiet.
And so much of that's intention as well. When you want to give intention, when you want to use the tool. So we'll do one more. So sensory identification. So I enjoy movies. So for me, when I hear popcorn popping, first of all, I smile. Second of all, my mouth starts to water. Like for me, like just that sound elicits a sensory reaction. And so for you, what elicits the same for you? And this goes back to what we spoke about earlier. What sounds can you have to trick your body into feeling something? Is it the sound of your kids laughing? You want to laugh or smile? Is there a favorite cartoon show that you had as a kid that you know the theme song to that you could put on and you'll start humming or singing along for 30 seconds? It'll make you laugh or smile. Don't get me started on DuckTales or the other ones I watched as a kid. What are the ones that will evoke an emotional response that will help you through a moment that you could trick your body into doing, because we do respond to sounds. So those are the 3 practical, easy, small things that you could do each day or have prepared each day to help you through situations. So that's a whole bit about what we can do individually. Let's turn to what we can do with each other. So within one of these research studies I was reading, there was this case about a researcher that was talking to a father about listening, and he was talking about his experience, and he was talking about frustration that his son wasn't hearing him. He said, "I can't understand my son because he won't listen to me." And the researcher stopped and said, "Say that again. I can't understand my son because he won't listen to me." He said, "Say it again a little slower and think about what you're saying." "I can't understand my son because he won't listen to me." Understanding comes because you aren't listening to him. We think we understand often because we hear what someone's saying, we think we have a similar experience, and then we share what our experience is. Which is better than not listening, but it puts that on our frame, in our lens. And that's vastly different than trying to put on the lens and the frame of the person we're interacting with. And so if we're going to talk about interacting with others, we're going to talk about empathetic listening. There's a number of stages of this. So stage 1 of empathetic listening is you have an interaction with someone. Do I have a brave person? I'll pick you.
Do I need to stand up?
Yes, come up here. So
Do I need my
do
glasses?
not do this with someone you do not know. I know Kim. She also doesn't know what I'm about to do, so this could or could not work out. Okay? But we're going to be interacting with one another, and so Kim, tell me about your last birthday. Tell me about something that last time you had a family interaction with you.
I went to visit my mother and stepfather over my mother's birthday, and
Am I a good listener right now? Do people ask you the question and then turn away and start doing something else? Sure. Bad love, right?
what could tell their story?
Could we could deal with the internal guilt complex in another session. For this one, that's horrible. So let's try what sort of the next level up would be. Go ahead. Yeah.
So I went up there, and they're getting older, and I was able to help them in the garden.
Oh. Have you met those people? Those people probably make you feel a tad bit better than the ignoring people, but really not very much. You can tell they're pretending. Why'd you ask me the question in the first place? Let's try this one. Go ahead. Hold on.
So I was able to work in their garden with them, and then we had a great dinner, and I brought my mother
Oh,
flowers.
I had a great dinner too. So pick out something you say. This is rough and rudimentary, but pick out something you say so you know they've heard something. Better than the other two, but still not the kind of listening that you want to hear. One more time, please.
It was just a wonderful time to spend with my parents. They are getting older. I was able to help them in the garden. They've got a beautiful yard, but it's a lot of maintenance.
time with parents is so important. I was just spending time with my parents the other day, and I was trying to get them to come over for dinner too, and that time is so essential. Better, right? Like, I hear what she's saying, I'm responding to it, it's actually the same topical area, at least. But still not the ideal listen. One more time.
So, well.
You can start with it. Start.
That's interesting. Yeah, it was just lovely to be able to spend time with them. They live in the suburbs, they don't get many visitors, and I live down in DC, so I don't get to go up there much. It's like a 3.5-hour drive. But, so,
That must make you sad not to be able to see them so much.
sometimes.
Must make you happy sometimes not to be able to see them.
No, that's difficult, but it is harder to be farther away because you can't help as easily. So, but it also makes the times really focused and enjoyable, and
That will make it meaningful memories for the future.
Mhm.
Anything about me in those statements?
You're actually listening to her. Say, respond to her as opposed to telling your story.
So first, that round of applause for Kim. You need a brave soul to do that because they don't know what they're getting into, and frankly, you're going to be abusing them a little bit for the first example or two. So thank you very much. There's a difference, this is from Peter Drucker, there's a difference between listening for understanding and listening to reply. When we listen, do we have the lens on of what's going on in our life? When we listen, do we have the lens on of what am I going to say next? When we have to listen, do we have the lens on of how's what you're saying, what happened in my life, and I want to tell you about that? Or when we listen, do we have the lens on of I'm going to shut all the rest out and actually hear what you're saying and be present with you where you are? The right thing to do isn't always the easiest thing to do. But remember how we said before, most conflict happens because understanding is not achieved, because listening doesn't happen? This is where we're starting to get into some of that. The people who are in conflict, are they looking through their lens? Or are they trying to look through the other person's lens? So in communication, research has showed that only 10% is actually about what we say. 30% is about our sounds. Do you nod and say yes as they go along and encourage them to keep going? And 60% is about body language. This, by the way, when we talk about how phone conversations, it's harder to connect, why is live still so necessary? We lose that 60% and so much more shifts when we understand better what we see. Think about how many people have here been on a conference call. How many people here have heard silence in a conference call and you don't know if someone's thinking or there's something going on and you're not there or they're waiting for you to say something? You missed the key facial recognition and body recognition we give you. Better on video. Not that video is free, we should be using it more. It's still different than being in person. You joke without saying a word. So, this is what I would like you to do. We're going to go back to our peanut butter and jellies for a moment. And jellies, it's your turn this time. So jelly, you are going to invite peanut butter to come to either your family Thanksgiving or your family holiday, or your family 4th of July. What is a meaning family event that you have that you're going to invite them to come to? And your invitation should include why it's meaningful to you and what they're going to experience. I will give you forewarning, you're going to have to make the same invitation 3 times. Just peanut butters. The first time around, I want you to sit there and listen and close your eyes. All right? So peanut butters, close your eyes. Jellies, I'm going to give you about 1 minute to make an invitation, okay? Jellies, please proceed and invite peanut butter. Go ahead.
Get together, man, on where I live in the rooftop, grill food, some drinks, watch the fireworks, get over the monument. It's a great time. You're around a lot of friends, family. Make it out there for
All right, let me have your attention back, please. Let me have your attention back, please. Peanut butter, you're allowed to open your eyes this time. And Jelly, I would like you to start from the beginning and start the invitation again. You get 1 minute. Go ahead.
A big 40-mile party on the rooftops in the hotel. Great food, fireworks, friends hanging out, music. It's a lot of fun, man. So if you're available, I'd love for you to come.
All right, let me have your attention back, please. All right, one last time. This was going to be the hard one. This is going to be the hard one. Peanut Butters, I want you to listen to Jelly's invitation one last time, but this time I want you to try to put on an empathetic lens. I want you to hear their invitation, not forgetting the invitation for you, but hear it through how they're described. All right? Last time, go ahead.
One of my favorite holidays is just loving the chance to make friends and family together, do the rooftop party, watch the fireworks, food, drinks, music. Hopefully it's a beautiful day. Have it come to it.
All right, let me have you back, please. Let me have you back, please. Peanut butters. Peanut butters. Anyone want peanut butter and jelly sandwich for lunch? Yeah. Peanut butters. How many of you felt a difference between closed eyes and open eyes? Jellies, how many of you felt a difference between closed eyes and open eyes? Now this one won't be everyone, that's okay. How many people felt a difference between open eyes and empathetic listening? It is a harder skill set to go into, and I'm also having you repeat the same thing over and over. But if you were to practice this and do this, you would start to notice a discernible difference between listening for reception and listening for anything. And that is in 3 minutes in a silly made-up situation. So that is how we listen better for understanding. So with that said, let's turn to actually a little bit of sort of self-analysis and goal setting. So in front of, oh, by the way, before I mentioned Peter Drucker, it was actually Stephen Covey. I apologize. Listening for understanding Stephen Covey. So in front of each of you, or next to you, is one of these sheets. Everyone should have one. Does anyone not? So this is what we are going to do. These are 10 steps, if you will, or 10 things to think about how to listen better. And what I have extras if you need. What I would like to do is that I'm going to go through each. I'll talk about each for a few seconds, a minute. And all I want you to do is to grade yourself, 1 to 5. 5, I am a rock star at this, right? I do this without thinking about it, and I'm amazing. 1 is, I could use some work. I'm making this a little better for myself. All right, so for each of these, you're going to grade yourself 1 to 5. So number 1, stop talking. If we were supposed to talk more than we listen, we would have 2 tongues in 1 ear. Are you able, in a moment, to be comfortable with silence? Are you able to not talk first? Are you able to listen without trying to talk? Grade yourself 1 to 5. Number 2, preparing yourself to listen. When you come into a conversation or interaction, are you able to put your to-do list and the conversation you just had, and the applications you need to submit, and the memos that are on your desk, and the shopping list that has to be done to the side, and focus on the conversation you're having. How much are you able to prepare for the conversation you're having by removing your own distractions? Now maybe we'll leave it there. Number 3, do you give speaker affirmation when you're talking to someone? By nature, do you nod? Do you give affirmative sounds? How much are you intentional in making sure you are recognizing that you hear what they're saying and want them to keep going? You're the only one grading you on this. So if you think you do it great, that's great. If you think you do it, but you can do better, give yourself the right score. This is for your own self-reflection. How much do you give speaker affirmation? Number 4, how much do you intentionally remove distraction in a conversation? Is your phone on the table with you? Face up or face down? For those of you that have some sort of iWatch or other watch that you still get to check on there what's coming on your phone, I'm going to tell you that's not any better than your phone out in front of you. You don't get extra points for that. When you're on a phone call, how many screens do you keep open on your computer to try to multitask? Are you intentional about removing the distractions that are around you when you have a conversation? I won't go deep into this one since we did a whole thing on it, but how much do you give intention to empathizing in the conversation? Of trying to take on the speaker's point of view rather than your own? Or would you grade yourself on? Do you have patience? Pauses are okay. Do you need to fill the space in the conversation? I had an amazing experience with my son who's in kindergarten a few weeks ago. I was in his classroom. They were going around the circle. Each kid was talking about like what they're thankful for, right? So, the kid's like, oh, I'm thankful for my mommy and daddy. I'm thankful for my toys. I'm thankful for my friends. And then it got to my son, and he didn't have a response. 10 seconds, 20 seconds. And they were about to move on. He's like, I'm thankful for all the freedom we have. Which it just took him that long to think about what was meaningful to him and not just repeat someone else. If his teachers weren't comfortable with silence and with giving time, he would have been cut off. He would never have been able to get to that point. I don't believe just because he's in kindergarten that principle is any less true for any of us. In our conversations, how comfortable are we with giving space for people to think not just about the quick reply, but the right reply? If you're in an interview, is there anything wrong with saying that's a really good question? Can you give me 1 second? And to take the moment to collect your thoughts before you reply. How do you grade yourself on that? Next, can you be impartial and focus on what is being said and black out the mannerisms that may bother you? So if someone is playing with their hair the whole time, if someone has a nervous habit that they're doing, if someone uses like a million times in what they're saying, can you get past the thing that itches you and actually hear what they're saying? I'm not saying this is easy to do, but how good are you at doing that? You also may have never thought about these things before, so just be as honest as you can as you think about them, but they're all part and parcel of being better listener. How good are you about perceiving tone and volume? How are you doing today? I'm doing okay. How are you doing today? I'm doing okay. How good are you about recognizing that in others? And about moderating your own? You can get 2 different scores if you like, that's fine. You can do 1 score for listening to others and 1 for moderating your own. That's fine for 2 scores as well. Again, 10% what we say, 30% how we say, right? This is how we say. How good are you hearing the ideas behind the words that are being said? So someone may not always have the right words to say. They may be trying to formulate it as they're going. How good are you putting the pieces of the puzzle together to hear what they're trying to get at? Can you help translate? How would you rate yourself? And I think this is the last one on there. Yes. How good are you at recognizing nonverbal cues? Facial expressions, gestures. Is it something you pick up on? And this could be another one that you could both think about how you use it. The second one could be how you recognize it in others. There's a whole art, right, in the interview process of mimicking what you see to try to be in alignment, strictly from a physical sense of crossed arms, open arms, one arm on the table, crossed legs, not crossed legs, to try to relate to the other person before saying a single word. How much do you pick up on someone else's nonverbal cues? All right, so you have 10 ratings of yourself. This is what I would like you to do, is you're going to turn to your peanut butter and jelly, and you're going to say, which of these am I a rock star at, that I'm going to look to become a guru, a Jedi master, or whatever at? What's the one you're going to focus on there? And which of these is the one where I need a lot of work that I'm going to focus in the next week or 2 on trying to improve? So I want you to talk about them with your partner and make an agreement on which is the one you're awesome at, that you're going to become even more awesome, and which is the one you need to focus on and improve, that you're going to try to focus on improving.
Sometimes something like non-verbally.
All right, we'll have you back, please. Can I have you back, please?
Try to hold it close to like your
Can I have you back, please?
So I'm in the process. We're going through and I believe.
So when you get home, you go back to the space where you most often engage in your professional life, whatever that may be. I want you to take one Post-it note and write the one that you're going to focus on where you're awesome. Take another, the one you're going to focus on where you want to improve. I want you to hang it up in your space for at least the next week or two, so that you have it as a reminder of what you're supposed to be focused on.
Could I ask a question? Are you going to give us tactics, if not strategies, on trying to improve how, for example, you receive a certain tone? If the tone on the other side is like,
Lackluster.
make a phone call and the person answers the phone, but it's evident through the way they answer the phone that they don't want to talk.
Sure.
So what's the appropriate response? I imagine, oh, is this a good time? Should I call later? But then what if the person says, no, go ahead? You know, so you have to go ahead, but you know that they don't want to talk. So how do you have like strategies to handle this?
I have 2 or 3 responses to that, but I'll ask if anyone else does first, since you've been listening to my voice. Yes?
I would say something like, you know, if your gut is telling you that they really are busy and they don't, or for whatever reason, they don't want to talk to you right then, I would say, no, really, I'm happy to call back. In fact, I'd rather, call back during a time when you might have more time and we can have a more productive conversation. Would that be okay? That's what I would say.
So I agree with that, and I find context plays a lot. So are you cold calling for a sales reason? Or are you connecting about something where there's an initial place of recognition, of knowledge, of service? My disposition in most conversations, even over the phone, is to be one of questioning rather than telling. And I can usually tell by a question or two in how responsive they are. If you're at a 10 in terms of how well you're listening, and they're at a 2, the best you could hope for is still a 5 or 6, right? Or how much are they going to come up to where you are? I'd say in those situations, you need to be the best you can be, and then evaluate from there. Do I need this answer now? I know this is going to be an ideal conversation. Do I try to have it at another time? Depending on the importance. So I was working with a CEO of an association. I was talking about their association. Individuals don't join their organization, companies do. So you're talking about joining for anywhere between $50,000 to $500,000 for a company to join this organization. So first of all, the premise of what email should I have to send to get them to join kind of goes out the door. And she's like, we have these great conversations, and I call, but I can't get them to close. I can't get them to join. I said, for a company to spend somewhere between $200,000 to $500,000, my guess is you need to not get on the phone. You need to get on a plane and go and have that conversation. I'm not saying you need to get on a plane for every conversation. What I'm saying is that depending on the import of the conversation, how much do you need to invest in making it the right environment, in the right circumstances, and the right. If you're doing a broad-based survey and you're trying to get a lot of responses, not everyone's going to be willing to answer with the same enthusiasm. That's okay. There's a certain level of response that's acceptable. You're worried about long-term customers not coming back in loyalty, and you want to have a qualitative and not a quantitative conversation. You better try to schedule that beforehand for when someone thinks that conversation is going to be in their right mindset and their right moment, so you can capture their ability to come to your level for that enthusiasm and interest. I think in the end, there's a lot of factors there in what you're saying. I think it comes down to empathy. Can you understand where they are at that moment and listen for it so you know whether they can shift out of where they are and be in the space you want them to be in? Or are they stuck in the space they're in and you're going to get what you're going to get, or you need to reschedule the call or the conversation? I think it does go back to virtual listening. I think if you think about the next time you are on a call and the import of that call, pay attention to what you can't control what they do. You can control what you do. Are you sitting in front of your computer and looking at your screen at the same time? Even if you think you are fully paying attention to the call, if you're looking at the email coming in, or at Facebook, or whatever other thing you're doing, you are not giving full attention to the conversation you're having. I would qualify that sitting on a conference call, so it's playing in the background, but then doing all of your work, does not count as attending a conference call. Ever happened that you get called on to say something you don't know what was just said? I think it's an extra struggle when you're virtual. That means you need to give extra intention. So here's what I would, before we go into that, here's what I'd actually like you to do, because we're getting close to the end of time. I'll quickly run through this at the end. I want you to think for a moment about what we talked about today. Think about how our responses come about. Think about how we can turn things into responses. Think about the intention that we give, empathetic listening, those skill sets. And Jelly, you're going to have the hard work in the moment. Peanut Butter, I want you to retell your story of struggle or a triumph from the beginning of the session. And Jelly, this time, I want you to try to listen empathetically, with focus, with some of the things that we discussed. Peanut Butter, please tell your story once again. Extra gold stars for those of you that were nodding and giving positive. So look, this was a very sort of compact, intense time period. So I don't know if you exactly were able to feel monumental measurement differences between telling one and telling two. But perhaps peanut butter as you were, Jellies, I'm guessing at least in your mind, you were giving different intention to how you were listening this time. We can improve our senses. We can improve them as a skill set if we give attention to them. Now we're close to the end, and so rather than go through these individually, I just wanted to throw in there one final, in case you are looking for interviews, sort of a top 7 things to think about before you're interviewing. You're going to listen. Number 1 is to practice the stuff we talked about. You're listening all the time. In an interview, you need to be hyper listening, right? You need to be listening to every word. The better your base skill set as a listener is, the better tools you'll have to apply in the interview setting. So how do you practice that in your daily life? Number 2 is how do you prepare in a way that lets you listen? Meaning, when I work with people and talk to them about going in to interview and what is that going to be like, what I say to them is that you do not need to go in with a blank slate. You should have, from your history, what are anywhere from 3 up to 6 success stories, achievement stories, that you want to tell. And you don't need to write out the whole stories, but you should have words that will let you trigger the stories. And then you need to find the question that lets you use that story, right? So my first association job, it was for a student corporate relations professional for the American Institute of Chemical Engineers. I walked in saying, I know nothing about chemical engineering. They said, that's fine, we know nothing really about getting student members. And went in, discovered they never actually were communicating with students directly. I started to do so, and I got them from 3,000 to 13,000 student members in a year and a half. Within those 90 seconds, that success story acknowledged humor as a place to start. It acknowledged shortcomings on both of our parts. It acknowledged me recognizing the problem. It acknowledged me being able to help them make market results that leaves a memory, that has a wow moment. If I have that as one of the things there, I could use that for tell me something you're proud of. Tell me an achievement that you've made. Tell me something that made impact on the organization. Tell me how you helped an organization grow. Tell me how you helped an organization gain additional revenue. Tell me how you helped the long-term strategy for the organization. Tell me how you helped the short-term strategy for the organization. Pick a whole host of questions. I can use that success story as an answer. So if you go in prepared with some of these success or achievement stories, there's one example of something you go in prepared with. You're able then to not be listening to the question, thinking about your reply. You're able to listen to the question for the question. The worst thing you can do, not the worst, one of the worst things you can do in an interview is to be listening, get halfway through the question they're asking, think about what you're going to say to it, and miss the second half of the question. So how do you set yourself up to be able to listen with intent to the entire thing they're asking? Yes?
When you're doing that, when you're listening, and sometimes it can be a very long question,
Yes.
would you recommend just sort of
Yes.
making notes, jotting down?
So I will say what I have in front of me when I interview in the past is I have 3 things in front of me. On my right side, I have the stories I want to tell, like the bullet points of that, my own personal stuff that I want to make sure I express in some way, and the questions I want to ask at the end. I write those out, so I always come in prepared with those, having done extensive research on their website. If they're a nonprofit, they're 990, so I know what I want to ask that's not about benefits or salary, but about them and their strategy and their vision and what makes impact. On my left side, I have a sheet of paper that's all about them, right? Like what do I need to know about the company, or what I need to know about who I'm interviewing with, bullet points, impact points, where they've trended, where they've struggled, what I was able to learn and glean and demonstrate that I've invested in getting to know you, and this is what I've seen so far. And then in the middle, I have a blank sheet of paper, so that as they're asking me questions, I can be taking down the bullet points of what they're saying. I do not use it for formulating responses as they're talking to me, but I do use it for making sure I get all the points of the question. And we'll go into this in a second, but if it's a multiple part question, especially then I'll reiterate back saying, what I think I heard you say is you want me to answer this, this, and this.
To make sure
That-
you answer the question that they ask, yeah.
Why? If you don't answer the question they ask, then you're probably not going to be a top candidate, because if you can't demonstrate successful listening skills in the interview, then you're not demonstrating successful listening skills in the question.
Unless you're running for president.
That is a very different session. But you can, no matter the questions you get, you can prepare in a way that lets you be open for the right kind of listening, right? Eliminate distractions. It should go without saying that your phone shouldn't be on the table. I will go beyond that and say your phone should just be off. Because even if it only vibrates in your pocket, that takes you out of the here and now that you're in. What else distracts you? You get your choice of seat, and you're someone who gets distracted easily. Is it better for me to be sitting here and facing you? Is it better for me to be sitting here and facing the window and the world outside? To be able to my eye to be calm. Know what distracts you and try to eliminate those. If you're someone who cares about the time, do not face a clock. The interview is going to be as long as it is. Don't worry about how long it is. They catch you glancing at the clock, it could be them thinking they're worried about how long till they can get out of here. What distracts you? Show that you're listening. I'm not going to go further into that because I feel like we did a lot of that today, but how do you employ those skills? This seems obvious, but often in the middle of someone saying something or asking a question, you want to put in a point or you want to build on their question. Don't. Let them finish, because where they end the question may not be where they started. They may not know exactly what they want to ask. They need to talk it out to get to what they actually want to ask you. And if you interrupt them with something halfway through, and it's not the actual question they want to ask, they're not going to remember it's not the actual question they're going to ask. They remember they never got to ask. They didn't get to hear what they needed to hear. Do not interrupt in the middle of being asked a question. There's also nothing wrong with asking for them to repeat the question, especially if it was a long one. Again, if you're being brought in for an interview, they're vesting in you to hear what you think and what you would do. This is a clarification point. Will give them a better answer. You can say, I want to make sure I give you the answer to the question you're asking. Did you say that on that? And finally, from a listening point, we always synchronize better with those that are echoing ourselves. That's why there's a whole school of thought around mimicking movement and nonverbal cues. Perhaps not with every question, but with many questions, particularly complicated ones, restating the question, repeating the question. This is what I hear that you would like me to answer. Here's what I have to say. No, in thinking about XYZ, repeating the question. It shows them that you are connecting from the very first moment. When they're asking a question, they're identifying a need. They need to know something about you. They need to know your approach. They need to know your skill set. They need to know your achievement, your application. And you're responding that I hear what you need. How do you employ that as a listener? So that could be a session itself, but there are 7 things to think about in the interview process about this. Does your brain hurt yet? So hopefully, whether it's working within your individual self, whether it's working as a paired self, you've not exchanged information or connected on LinkedIn with your peanut butter and jelly, you should. We've done some good work together. There's a lot we can do to improve our listening. I'm not saying you can do all this at once. I'm not saying that you should. But hopefully you walk out of here today with at least 1 or 2 places you can start thinking about how can I take a skill set that works for me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every single day of the year, waking, sleeping, and treat it better, give it white space, give it a chance to rest, give it a chance to be better. How can I take it to the gym, right? Exercise it, improve it, make it better. And then how could I moderate my own behavior so that when I employ it, I'm employing it in the best possible circumstances. If more people did that, we'd have a lot less conflict. If more people did that, we'd have a lot more harmony. And if more people did that, they'd see a lot more success. I appreciate all the time that you gave me today.
So we're going to ask one more time. For those who are new, you probably have a